Hey there guys, it's Tina and I'm back. And I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe. If you're also back, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me again. But if you're new and maybe you like what you see, please consider subscribing. We have tons of fun here on this channel talking about makeup and all things beauty. And today I am doing a follow-up video. So I recently posted a video swatching my entire foundation collection. I will link it over here so you can check it out. I do that type of video every couple of years or so I can show you my foundation shade matches and the ones that I haven't been able to find a perfect match in. So if you use me as a shade match reference, then you can use that video as kind of a cheat sheet to find your correct shade match in a certain brand or a certain formulation, or see what shades to stay away from. Now, the thing about that video is that it took me a while to edit, so it was kind of outdated by the time I actually went live with it. So I've added quite a few foundations to my collection since then, and a few of the foundations have also been reformulated by the brand. So they released updated formulations with different shade matches, and I did go ahead and pick up quite a few of them. So this video is kind of an addendum or a follow-up to that recent video, swatching the newer foundations in my collection and showing you my shade matches. And one of the great things about this newer selection of foundations is that I found some really great shade matches, and I can't wait to share them with you. In addition to that, I found some great formulations that are kind of my ride or die go-to formulations these days. So I'm also excited to share that with you guys. But make sure you check out the previous video. A lot of work went into it, and there's a lot to see over there. So if you're wondering what other foundations I have in my collection, check that video out. But this is just going to cover the newer selection in my collection. And what I did was pair up these newer foundations with corresponding foundations from the same brand. So for instance, I have two Gucci foundations, so I'm swatching them up against each other. So some of these are gonna be duplicate swatches from the previous video, but they'll make sense because you'll see them swatched against newer shades from newer formulations from like a similar brand. So I hope that all makes sense. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So let's go ahead and start out with one of my favorite brands for foundations, Dior. And the first two foundations in this lineup are reformulations. So I did swatch the older formulations in my most recent collection video. So these are the updated, revised formulations, and the shade ranges have changed slightly. However, I still picked the same shades. So let's start out with the first one, which is Dior Forever Matte Foundation. This retails for $55 and is available in 42 shades. This foundation has a medium coverage and matte finish and touts itself as transfer, heat, and humidity resistant with up to 24 hours of color, true wear, and comfort. The shade I picked up is 4.5 neutral, which is meant for medium skin with neutral undertones. And this foundation shade match is spot on. It is such an excellent match for me. It has slightly golden undertones, as you can see in the swatch on my arm, but when you swatch it on my face, it blends in almost seamlessly. It is almost undetectable. And once it's blended out, it has this beautiful natural matte finish. It doesn't look cakey or dry. It just sits beautifully on the skin. So I would recommend this for oily or normal skin. Next up, we have the Dior Forever Skin Glow Foundation. This also retails for $55 and is available in the same 42 shades. This one has a medium coverage, but instead of being matte, it has a hydrating formulation. It also touts the same heat and humidity resistance with 24 hours of color, true wear, and hydration, while visibly reducing pores for a smooth and radiant looking complexion. I will admit I was a bit apprehensive about this glowy, radiant finish that was mentioned, but once I apply it and blend it out, it has more of a natural skin finish. It doesn't dry flat matte, but it does dry down to a very natural finish without any dewy residue behind. It doesn't look oily on the skin at all, and I love this finish. Swatched out, it looks slightly lighter than my skin, but again, once blended out, it's really seamless, and the dry down also darkens it a little bit. So this skin tone match is a really good one as well, even though it may look like it's slightly lighter on my jawline. Next up is one of the newest formulations to Dior. This one can be found at Ulta. It is the Dior Forever Natural Nude Foundation. It also retails for $55, but this one has a light to medium coverage and is touted as being fresh and lightweight with a natural and luminous finish. It says your complexion will be flawlessly even for 24 hours non-stop, and your skin will be hydrated and radiant as if it has been plumped. The shade I picked up in this is also 4.5 neutral, but this one has a slightly different description. It says it's for medium skin with neutral beige undertones, and I don't really see the beige undertones. I think it is in line with the other shades where it's more of a balanced golden neutral. And again, this match works really great on my skin. This has more of a luminous finish. It's not really radiant or glowy. It just looks very natural on the skin. It looks like my skin with a lightweight moisturizer on. It is really beautiful. It does have a more lightweight coverage rather than a medium, and it is perfect for the days when you just want something to even out your skin without giving that heavy coverage. Next up is Gucci, and I have two of their formulations in my collection. The first one is their older formulation that is now only available on the Gucci website. I swatched this also in the most recent video, but I wanted to show you both formulations up against each other because I have different shade matches. So first up is the older formulation. This is the Gucci Fluid de Beauté Fini Naturel Foundation, or in plain English, Natural Finish Fluid Foundation. This retails for $69 and is available in 40 shades. This foundation is described as being comfortable, lightweight, and completely buildable from a barely there finish to a subtle full coverage look. It has a natural finish with soft focus powder technology incorporated. It is meant to be lightweight and long wearing. The shade I picked up is 350W, which is meant for medium skin with warm undertones. Now this foundation shade match is just slightly deeper than my complexion, but the undertones work really well. It has more of a rich golden undertone with a slight hint of orange, but it's not too orange where I will look like an Oompa Loompa. It actually blends out really nicely on my skin. It's just a touch too deep, but the undertone is spot on. And then we have the newer formulation, which is the Gucci Eternité de Beauté 24-hour full coverage luminous matte finish foundation. Say that 10 times fast. Again, it is available in 40 shades and retails for $69. This one says it has a luminous matte finish, which is kind of an oxymoron because how do you describe a foundation as both luminous and matte? Either way, it has full coverage and incorporates bamboo powder, which absorbs shine all day. And I had a little bit of trouble finding my exact shade match because the shades kind of changed a bit. For this foundation, I picked up the shade 360W, which is meant for medium skin with warm undertones, which is supposed to be darker than the 350W from the previous formulation. However, I found that this shade match is lighter than the previous one, but this foundation has more of a matte finish. So once it dries down, it darkens up just a little bit, which is enough for it to really blend seamlessly with my skin. It is long wearing and it does control shine, and I am so in love with it. I've heard people complain about this formula, but if you have oily skin, I'm telling you, you might fall in love with this foundation, especially if you have a richer skin tone. It seems that people that have lighter shade matches complain about the formulation, but for me, it's so perfect. I absolutely love it. It was worth every single penny. Next up, I have a selection of high-end or luxury foundations. First up, we have the Yves Saint Laurent or YSL All Hours Luminous Natural Matte Foundation. This retails for $60 and is available in 40 shades. And here we go again with the luminous matte finish. I just don't understand how you put those two descriptors together and expect it to make sense. But I think they're truly just afraid of calling a foundation matte because people want more of a natural finish. So they're gonna call it luminous matte, which really translates to a natural finish. This one is also a reformulation, and I swatched the previous formulation in the most recent video, but I went ahead and grabbed the updated version. This one is touted as being full coverage. The product is described as breathable and it feels comfortable for 24 hours, and your skin will look healthy, softer, smoother, and hydrated. The shade I picked up is DN1, which is a deep shade with neutral undertones at level 1. And this shade match actually works really well, even though it looks slightly lighter on my skin. And again, what I found with foundations that have a matte finish, they tend to dry down a little bit darker than when they're initially applied and still damp on the skin. Once they set and dry down, they're a touch darker than they initially present. Again, the undertones are neutral with a slight golden hue, so it matches me really well, and the finish is impeccable. It is a beautiful natural matte finish. It wears really well. I really do like this foundation, and I think the reformulation was well done, so kudos to them. Then we have the Givenchy Prism Libre Skin Caring Glow Foundation. This is a newer one to my collection. It retails for $52 and is available in 30 shades. And I was actually pleasantly surprised by this price point. I was expecting $60, so I was happy to see it in that $50 price range. So this touts itself as having light coverage and a radiant finish, and it is also long wearing with up to 24 hours of glow. The shade I picked up is 5N390, which is meant for tan to deep skin with neutral undertones. And this one is not as neutral as I would expect from something that says I have neutral undertones. It actually looks a little bit peachy, a little bit orange, which makes me a little bit nervous. In addition to it being glowy, I was very nervous about that glowy finish, but I wanted to try it, and I'm happy I did because it is a nice foundation. It just isn't necessarily my best shade match, so I do have to offset that orange undertone quite a bit by setting it with a lighter yellow tinted powder, but I can still make it work on my complexion. I just have to be a little bit mindful of that orange tint that it has. It's not truly neutral. I really wish it was because this formulation is really nice. It is long wearing. It has more of a medium coverage. I would say it's not really lightweight, and even the finish is more on the natural side of things rather than being truly glowy or radiant. And then we have maybe the newest foundation to my collection. This is the Guerlain Terracotta Le Teint Healthy Glow Foundation. This one retails for $62 and it is available in 22 shades. This one says it has a natural matte finish with medium coverage and has up to 24 hours of wear and a no transfer formula. The shade I picked up in this one is 4.5W, which is meant for medium skin with golden undertones. And this one was such a pain to shade match. I thought I would be 6N initially because I was going for a neutral undertone and the descriptions were on the tan side, while this foundation shade match that I finally got is meant for medium skin. So for this one, I warn you to go lighter than you think. and be mindful of the undertones, because I picked up a warm undertone, which really I wanted neutral, but the neutral undertone leans very, very orange. I don't understand. I looked like a straight dark Oompa Loompa and I was not having it, okay? I tried 5N and 6N and they were terrible matches. But the 4.5W actually works out, believe it or not. And you'll see swatched out on my arm, it's not as orange as the neutral undertone from Givenchy. So I was surprised that it is a warm foundation. And swatched out on my cheek, you can see it's almost an exact match, but it's still slightly too deep. It's still a rich foundation, but 4.0 is too light. So I'll stick with the 4.5. Again, I had a hard time matching this foundation, but I think 4.5 is the best match I'm going to get. And it works okay. It blends out really nicely. I just use a lighter concealer and a lighter powder to set everything in place, and I can definitely make it work. But this one is a tricky one. If you can swatch it in store, that's your best bet, because trying to match online was a nightmare for me. Keeping with the luxury foundations, let's go into the world of Chanel. I have two of their formulations. First up is the Chanel Ultra Le Tint Ultra Wear All Day Comfort Flawless Finish Foundation. This retails for $65 and is available in 35 shades. You can find this one at Ulta. You won't find it on the Sephora website. And this touts itself as a full coverage formula with a soft matte finish, and it provides up to 24 hours of lightweight all day comfort. The shade I picked up is B80, which is a light deep shade with a neutral undertone. And let me tell you right now, this is a spot on shade match. It is so beautiful on my skin. The shade has slightly golden undertones. Again, it's like a neutral golden, and it blends seamlessly with my skin. The finish is immaculate. It is such a long wearing foundation. It has this beautiful soft focus finish. It is stunning, and it does help to control oil throughout wear. I am in love with this foundation. I love it so much, and I never thought I would say that about Chanel, because Chanel foundations are notorious for not having a shade match. But I found a really great shade match, and I will say I am so in love with this foundation, just as I am with the Gucci Luminous Matte. Then we have one that I never thought I would ever add to my collection. This is the Chanel Sublimage Le Tint Ultimate Radiance Generating Cream Foundation. Let me tell you something about this foundation, okay? It had me hemming and hawing for so long until I just bit the bullet and picked it up. Why? Because it is $135. Yes, it retails for $135 and is available in 18 shades. It says it has a creamy texture with a light to medium coverage for a glowing, healthy, luminous look. None of those things really appeal to me, but just the luxury of it all made me want to try it out. So the shade I picked up is B91 Beige Door, and this was an easy shade match. I was able to match my shade just using the website, and this foundation, I will say, is beautiful. It looks absolutely stunning on the skin. Swatched out, it may look a little bit on the orange side, and I was a little bit nervous about that. But once it's blended out, it's not as peachy orange, but I have to still be careful with it because it can lean a little too warm. It is a glowy foundation, but it's not overly glowy where it just looks like you're an oil slick. You can powder it down, set it down and everything, and it will wear nicely on the skin. It does feel really great on the skin. It has these skincare ingredients that feel really comfortable and they leave your skin looking beautiful. It's just not gonna wear for a long time. It's here for a good time, and that's it. And I do like wearing it. I just don't wear it often because it is very glowy and I have to be mindful of that. But it's a great little foundation. Would I repurchase it at that price point? Probably not. Moving on to mid-range brands, we have the Il Makiage Woke Up Like This foundation. I did swatch this in the most recent video, but I added a new shade and got rid of one. So I wanted to show you the two shades that I have in my collection. This one is touted as a matte finish full coverage foundation and is available in 50 shades. This shade match was a little bit tricky for me to navigate, even though they have like a skin quiz that worked out okay, but I was able to find a better match for myself just going through the shades on the website, seeing the swatches, and navigating the undertones with neutral versus yellow, pink, and olive. So with that being said, I picked up two shades. I have shade 160, which has a neutral undertone. This one is for deeper skin tones, and this shade match actually works out pretty well. It is a neutral undertone though. They're not lying about that. This foundation swatched out on my skin looks almost gray, which is a little bit tricky to navigate. Even though I want a neutral foundation, I want it to have more of a golden lean-in neutral undertone. This one goes way too neutral, way too gray, and it can look a little bit ashy on my skin. So I have to be careful if I use this shade. I have to tweak it with my concealer and my powder again. Not my favorite skin tone match, but I like the foundation enough that I went ahead and grabbed shade 175. Shade 175 is again a deep tan shade, but this one has yellow undertones, and you can see the difference in the undertones. It's just a couple of levels deeper than 160, but you'll see the undertone difference. This leans more on the warm side. It definitely looks a little bit more peachy, a little bit more orange. I thought it would be more golden because it says yellow, but it actually leans a little bit more orange. But this one works out really well. It's a better undertone match for me. It blends out a little bit more seamlessly on my skin, and it's easier to balance out with concealer and powder versus the truly neutral undertone. And I do love this formulation. I wish I could get like a perfect spot on shade match, but this one actually works pretty well. And if I had to choose between the two, I would go with 175. And again, I swatched the other shade in the previous collection. That didn't really work out as well for me, so I'm sticking to shade 175. Then we have the KVD Beauty Good Apple Full Coverage Serum Foundation. This is a liquid version of the Good Apple Balm Foundation. It retails for $42 and is available in 40 shades. This one is a lightweight foundation with full coverage that doesn't feel heavy on the skin. It will blur your pores and stand up to sweat and humidity. This one, again, is a tricky foundation to get the shade match right, but I went in store to swatch this one so I would get a better shade match. I picked up the shade Tan 068, which is meant for tan skin with warm undertones. And again, I picked up a warm undertone foundation, but it's the best match that I could find. And this formulation, again, is so beautiful. It blends out really effortlessly on the skin. It has this beautiful natural matte finish, and it does have a very lightweight feel given that it is a full coverage foundation. Now, as you can see in the swatches, it leans very warm. It leans a little bit more golden than orange though, which I can work with over that bright orange. So this shade, I do have to tweak a little bit, again, with concealer and powder. It's not the best shade match, and again, I just have to work with it, but it's the best match I could get in this formulation. Let's continue with the mid-range brands, but now I'm veering into skin tints. I have two options available. First up, we have the Rare Beauty Positive Light Tinted Moisturizer. This one I swatched in the previous video as well, but I'd added a new shade and I wanted to swatch that shade out for you. So this retails for $30 and is available in 24 shades. Again, this is a skin tint, so it's going to have light coverage and more of a radiant, hydrating finish. This is meant to be no makeup, so it's described as a weightless, breathable, tinted formula that blends into the skin for a blurred, hydrated, naturally radiant, non-sticky finish, which is key because we don't want a sticky finish, right? So like I said, I picked up two shades of this. I have 42N, which I previously swatched. This is medium deep with neutral neutral golden undertones. That sounds exactly right up my alley. And for the most part, it works. It blends in really nicely with my skin, but it's slightly too light. The undertones are great, the match is perfect, but because it has a neutral undertone, if it leans a little bit too light, it can look a little ashy. So I went ahead and picked up shade 44N, which is going to be the level up in depth. This is meant for medium deep skin, again, with neutral undertones. And this one leans a little bit more orange. I don't understand how it's just supposed to be slightly deeper, but all of a sudden there's a shift in the undertone. This looks a little bit warmer, but it works well on my skin, and it works a little bit better than the lighter shade because it doesn't end up leaving that ashy cast behind. And I like it. It's a lightweight formula, so it has a sheer finish. It's not really heavy duty. So even though it's slightly deeper, it still works on my skin tone. The orange doesn't really shine through. And if I'm looking for something quick and easy, I can go for this formulation. It does feel slightly sticky though, I will say. So even though they say it's not sticky, it does feel a little sticky. So it's not my favorite skin tint because this next formulation blows it out of the water. So this is the Amicole Skin Enhancing Tinted Moisturizer. It retails for $32, but it is only available in 6 shades, which makes me really sad because I want everybody to try this out. Now, to be fair, it is a lightweight coverage. It is more on the sheer side. So a single shade can be used for various skin tones, but I still feel like there needs to be more shades. It's a smaller up-and-coming Black-owned brand, so I'm also giving them some grace when it comes to their shade expansion. But this formulation, oh, it's so perfect. Oh my god. So this one has light to medium coverage with a natural dewy finish. And let me tell you right now, this shade match is spot on. So the shade I picked up is medium 1. This is meant for medium skin with neutral or golden undertones. And my shade is actually the second lightest. So that's why I'm a little sad because I wish more people could try this out. Either way, I'm happy I have a shade match, and my shade match is so spot on. It's so excellent. It's so perfect. I know it's a skin tint, so it's not gonna have heavy coverage, but oh my god, it almost disappears into my skin. You can barely see it. Look at the swatch. Look at the swatch. The evidence is there. You can barely tell what's going on my skin. It leans neutral, obviously, but it has more golden undertones to it as well. So it's not ashy at all. And I'm so in love. I am so in love. This is perfect for the summertime. It gives you a beautiful, even coverage, right? But it's still lightweight. It's really thin. It's seamless. It's stunning. It is a little bit more on the dewy side though, so I do have to set it down with powder, but it sets beautifully. Again, it's lightweight so it doesn't get cakey or anything. It's stunning. It's stunning. Oh my god, A+. Love this one. If you were looking for a skin tint and you can find a shade match, I'm just saying, this is where it's at. Check this out. Let's keep going with the mid-range brands in the skin tint CC cream tinted moisturizer category. This is IT Cosmetics, and I have 2 formulations from them. First up is the IT Cosmetics CC Plus Cream Full Coverage Color Correcting Foundation. I don't know why they're calling this foundation now. I guess because of the coverage, because this used to just be a CC cream. So this one has SPF 50. Great for the summertime. It retails for $47. I think that's a price increase. But it is also available in a mini size, and the mini size is $21. It is available in 22 shades, and this one, as I said, has a full coverage and more of a natural finish. It has sunscreen. It's meant to be hydrating and anti-aging, and they've also expanded the shade range. So the shades I have were recently sent to me, and I wanted to swatch them out so you can see them. I don't necessarily have a perfect shade match from this foundation, but I do have these 2 shades to share with you. So first up we have the shade Tan Rich. This is meant for tan to rich complexion with cool rosy undertone. Obviously I didn't pick this shade out myself because rosy undertone would turn me off right away, but this shade actually works out on my skin tone. It has a cool undertone to it, so it looks a little beigey, a little bit more on the gray side. But it also has some warmth, some golden undertones, so I can blend it out and make it work, believe it or not. and I just have to tweak it with concealer and some powder. But I actually don't mind this formulation, especially for the SPF and the skincare properties. It's a decent foundation. I feel like they can update the formulation a bit though, because it feels very heavy on the skin. But if you were looking for something with heavy SPF, this might be a good one to check out. This is not my favorite formulation from IT Cosmetics because I have oily skin, and this is just a little bit too heavy, a little bit too dewy for me. They also sent me the shade Neutral Rich, which is meant for tan to deep complexions with a neutral peach undertone. Again, not a shade I would pick up for myself. I don't want a peach undertone. This one leans very orange. It's definitely not a good undertone match for me. You should stay away from this one if you're my complexion or if you use me as a skin tone reference. This is just gonna pull way too orange, and it's full coverage, so it's going to look very heavy on the skin. I can make it work if I really wanted to, but neither of these two shades really work for me. I wanted to swatch them out since they sent them my way, and this will give you an idea of the shades to stay away from. But I do have a formulation from IT Cosmetics that I like. This is the IT Cosmetics CC Plus Cream Oil Free Matte Foundation CC Cream. This also retails for $47 and is available in 12 shades. They need to do a shade expansion for this one. It has a matte finish versus the original CC cream, and it's full coverage. Again, it's good for anti-aging, and it has that SPF. This one I can make work, and I really do like the finish. And again, with more of a matte finish, it dries down a little bit deeper. So the shade I picked up is Rich, and I don't see this as being rich. Like, why is this rich, you know? Come on now, let's be serious. But the shade match works out for me once I blend it out. You'll see it looks a little bit light. It definitely has more of a golden lean-in orange undertone. But again, I can make it work, and once it dries down, it's a little bit richer. And if I set it with powder, balance it out with some concealer, it works really well. And again, I like having this one because it has SPF, and that matte finish really works out for me. IT Cosmetics is not a brand that I would praise for the shade ranges that they offer. And I've never found a great shade match. I can make it work. I can make most things work, but I can't be bothered anymore. They're so behind the time. I know they're trying to work on it, but what's taken so long? So I wouldn't recommend any of these foundations necessarily from IT Cosmetics unless you can find a really great shade match. All right, let's jump into Drugstore. I have two Drugstore foundations that I added to my collection. We have one reformulation and one new formulation. So this first one is from NYX Cosmetics. It's the Bear With Me Blur Tint Soft Matte Foundation. It is available in 24 shades and retails for $14. Of course, you can always use coupons and get it at a discounted rate. This one is described as a matte foundation that never looks cakey or ashy, and it has a medium buildable coverage. The shade I picked up is number 16 Warm Caramel, which is meant for medium deep skin with a neutral undertone. And for me, this is the best shade match that I could find, and it is very orange. It looks Oompa Loompa orange swatched on my arm and on my cheeks. And let me tell you something, I'm very annoyed, right? Because this formulation is so good. It's so comfortable, it's so lightweight, it wears really well on the skin. It's a drugstore foundation, so it's a great price point. I want to love this, and I do, except for the shade. I give it 10s all across the board except for my shade match. I can make it work though, and I will make it work because it's such a good formula. I will blend this orange out and apply my concealer and my powder, but I just wish I had a better shade match. But this is as good as it gets from NYX. It's 24 shades. If I go lighter, the shade is too ashy, it looks too beige. If I go deeper, it's too dark, it's just too rich on my complexion. So I'm stuck in the middle with this orange shade. But again, I can make it work, and it's kind of lightweight enough where it blends out and can kind of merge with your skin. So I make it work, I tolerate it because the formula is so great. Then we have the reformulation of the Juvia's Place I Am Magic Foundation. This one is called the I Am Magic Natural Radiance Foundation. This one retails for $23 and is available in 33 shades. It has a natural radiant finish and buildable medium to full coverage. This one, oh my god, it has such a strong fragrance. Be mindful of that. I have to forewarn you right now. It's a strongly fragranced foundation. If you're opposed to fragrance in your complexion products, skip this altogether. Even if you like fragrance or you don't mind fragrance, this may be a little bit too overwhelming for you, and it does linger for a little bit. I personally will deal with it because I do like the finish and the coverage of this foundation because it sits beautifully on the skin. So the shade I picked up for this one is Kampala, which is recommended for dark tan skin tones with a golden undertone. And this is beautiful. I will say I really like the finish of this foundation. I like the shade match. It is golden, but it still leans neutral. It matches me so well. You can see in the swatch on my skin, like, come on. It is gorgeous. It took me a few tries to get the shade match right, but this is spot on. And again, it's a beautiful finish. It is radiant. It's a little bit more glowy than matte, but it's more of a natural radiance. It's not really dewy or anything. And if you lightly set it with powder, it gives this beautiful finish to the skin. And that's why I will tolerate the scent. And it's a good price point. So I really like this foundation. Either one of these foundations, I would recommend from the drugstore. I really do like them. All right, we're getting close to the end, so let's jump into my one new foundation stick. This is from Tarte. This is the Skin Treat Poreless Foundation Stick. It retails for $40 and is available in only 10 shades. It has a medium buildable coverage with a natural matte finish, and it is said to blur the look of fine lines, wrinkles, and pores. This is actually a pretty decent little foundation. So I picked up the shade Tan Deep. There's no description of the undertone, so I'm just gonna go with what I feel. This is for tan to deep skin with a warm undertone because you can see it leans very peach and very orange. It's definitely not neutral. But once I apply it to my face, it leans a little bit more golden, which is weird to me. It actually works well. It blends out nicely. I wouldn't say it's a full coverage foundation. This is more like a light buildable medium, and it works great for a quick face of makeup. It blends really easily. It does blur the skin. It has a beautiful finish, and it wears well. I don't have any complaints about this stick. It's a nice one to have, and I do appreciate it, but the shade range is trash, as you can see. 10 shades, come on. But this shade match actually works out pretty well, and I'm glad I picked it up because it's easy to just pop on the skin and go. And now let's go ahead and wrap up the swatches with powder foundations. This is a new addition to this type of video, and these are my newest powder foundations. So let's start off with the Makeup Forever HD Skin Matte Velvet Undetectable Longwear Blowing. So let's start out with the Makeup Forever HD Skin Matte Velvet Undetectable Longwear Blurring Powder Foundation. Oh my goodness, what a long name. That is ridiculous. This retails for $43 and is available in 32 shades. This says it is full coverage with a matte finish. It's long wearing and waterproof. It's meant to blur the look of imperfections and mattify the skin for up to 24 hours. This one was tricky to shade match, so I ended up with 2 shades because I just wasn't quite sure what shade to choose. And either of these shades work for me. So the first one I picked up is shade 3Y56 Warm Hazelnut, which is for tan to deep skin tones with yellow undertones. And I figured this one would be my best match just based on the shade description. And it's pretty close. It's a nice shade match. It's a little bit difficult to see in the swatches because it is a powder, so it's not going to be as heavy duty full coverage. You can build it up, but it's still a powder, so it's not going to be as stark on my skin. I hope you can see the swatches. This one is just slightly too light for me. It does have more of a yellow undertone though, so it does warm up on my skin. It looks pretty nice, and once it warms up to my skin and merges with my oils, it darkens up just a bit so I can make this shade match work. But the better shade match I found is 3Y60 Warm Almond, which is recommended for tan to deep skin with yellow undertones again, but it is the level up in depth. This one almost disappears on my skin. It's such a good shade match. It is still on the warmer side, so it has more golden undertones to it. I wouldn't say it's yellow. It's more peach leaning. But look at my skin. It blends in so well. It's such a great shade match. It's seamless on my skin. I really love it. And it's matte and long wearing, and it looks beautiful. I really like this foundation. I was never a powder foundation fan, but this one changed my mind, and I really do like it. Then we have the Shiseido Synchro Skin Self-Refreshing Custom Finish Powder Foundation. What is up with these powder foundation names? Why are they so long? This one has a sheer to medium buildable coverage with a natural finish and is available in 16 shades, and it retails for $45. This one says it's smudge proof and it gives immediate hydration with 8-hour shine control, so it doesn't tout itself as being long wearing, and you can use it both wet and dry. This one was tricky to find my shade match, so I did end up again with 2 shades. I just couldn't figure out what my shade match would be, so I picked up 34 Oak, which is described as golden with a slight olive undertone for medium skin. I figured if this one was just too light, I could use it under my eyes as a setting powder, but it ended up being a little bit too neutral, a little bit too light. It does lean very, very beige on my skin tone. It's too light. It looks ashy. I can make it work again over like a liquid foundation, but this shade match just isn't right at all. So I had to go with a second shade, which is 360 Citrine. This one is a balanced shade with a slight olive undertone for medium to tan skin. Now this shade is a much better shade match. It has more of a olive undertone for sure. It doesn't lean warm, but it has some golden hue to it as well. This one disappears on my skin. It works really well. It's a beautiful shade match. I hope you can see the difference of this shade up against the Makeup Forever yellow shade. It's just slightly more neutral, but it works, and it works really well if you use it wet or over a liquid foundation. It's a really beautiful powder, but I feel like the Makeup Forever one is a little bit more seamless. This one I can almost tell there's powder on my skin, and I think that's because it's meant to be used wet or dry, so it has that drier texture to it, which makes it a little bit powdery, but it applies really well on the skin. You can blend it out, and it's a seamless finish. So I really like both of them, but if I had to choose, I would go with the Makeup Forever. And that's it. That wraps up all the swatches. So let's go ahead and finish up the video. And there you have it. Hopefully this 4.5 addendum to my foundation collection video was helpful. Again, I found some really great shade matches and some really great formulations, and I was excited to share them with you guys. I just wanted to make sure that I shared the older swatches before I did this video, and I also did a foundation declutter because I was able to get rid of some really bad matches and kind of whittle down my foundation collection a bit because there were some foundations that weren't getting used. I didn't like the formulations, I didn't like the shade matches. Some of them were older and I just needed to get them out of my collection. So I feel a little bit lighter, and I think my foundation collection is down to a more manageable amount. Manageable for me is going to be different from manageable for you, but keep in mind that I do have a YouTube channel and I love foundations, so I'm always trying out new formulations. I'm always trying to find a holy grail, and I'm happy to say that I actually found a few in this newer selection of foundations that I recently added to my collection. Again, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I will leave links on all the foundations that I mentioned in this video down below, along with timestamps, so you can jump wherever you need to jump to in this video. I will also leave links on where you can pick them up. If there's an asterisk next to any of those links, that indicates that it is an affiliate link, which means I'll get a small sales commission if you make a purchase through those links. It's a great way to show you support for the channel. It gives me a kickback so I can put right back into the content. So I really appreciate you guys using my links. I also have a super thanks and channel memberships if you want to contribute to the channel in that way. And I also have shopping links now through YouTube, which I also earn a commission through. Again, another great way to show your support for the channel. Other than that, I'm going to leave links to my Instagram and Twitter. And at the end of this video, I am going to link a couple of correspondent videos that make sense for you to watch. If you haven't watched that Foundation Collection 4.0, definitely make sure you check it out. And until my next video, which will be very soon, I'll talk to you. Bye, guys.